On this episode of Tips from the Top Floor, we'll go into adding dates to our photos, and Larry wonders about the mystery of why some LCD screens turn black when you rotate them in front of polarized glasses and some others don't. This episode is brought to you by Duggal, a legendary photo lab that is now at your fingertips. ShopDuggal.com is the expanded online storefront of Duggal Visual Solutions, a leader and innovator in printing for over 50 years. At ShopDuggal.com, you now have instant access to world-class printing solutions such as HD photo and archival pigment prints, acrylic prints, canvas prints, metal prints, photo books, and more, and they ground ship for free. Give us your best work, we'll give you ours. Find more at shopduggal.com/topfloor. That's shopduggal.com/topfloor and use promo code TOPFLOOR at checkout to get 25% off your first order. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 836 for Thursday, August the 16th, 2018.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey, hello, welcome. It's Chris Marquardt. You're listening to Tips from the Top Floor, the usual stuff, longest running photography show, and so on. The book is out. The book is out. Yes, the book is out. I'm so over the moon because the wide angle book, that's what I'm talking about. The wide angle book is out in the United States on paper. You can get it anywhere you get books. It's like in stores, on Amazon, directly from the publisher, Rocky Nook, wherever you want to get it. And I'm super excited because the first book, the one that Monica and I wrote together, the Film Photography Handbook, had quite a limited appeal. Very proud of it, super proud of it, but it was this, well, it's a niche, right? I mean, let's admit it. Film photography is a niche. It is very limited. And the one that's out now, the wide angle book, is for everyone. Everyone who wants to take pictures. It doesn't really matter what camera with, as long as you go a wide angle, that book will help you. And it was a long process to write it. I've talked about it here on the show. It took almost 2 years to get to the point where everyone was really happy with it. And then it was published in Germany at the end of last year. And then we went into translation because Rocky Nook decided to translate it. And big thanks to Rocky Nook for doing that, because, that brings the book in front of a lot more people. And it's out now. Contains 8 chapters with different focuses. The first one is kind of the first steps with wide angle, right? If you are new to this whole thing and you just bought your first wide angle lens, it just a little help to get you up to speed really quickly. Second one is just about what is wide angle anyway, because there are lots of misconceptions in people's minds about what wide angle is and how it deals with depth and how the crop factor factors into that, how different sensor sizes dictate the angle of view. And then there's a whole chapter on composition with wide angle, the nitty gritty. What does wide angle do to the picture? And it has to do with, like, does it include a lot of things in the photo? It increases contrast in the photo, background, distortion. We're looking at depth of field. We're looking at closeness, at depth, at exaggeration, all these kind of things. And then there's an entire chapter that goes into different genres. How does wide angle work in landscape photography, in architecture photography, but also in things where you don't really think wide angle, like in street photography or in portraiture. How do you apply that in these different kinds of photography? And then for the techies among you, there's an entire chapter on the tech of wide angle. How does it work technically? Angular speeds, vignetting, rules of thumb, chromatic aberrations, image circle, filter vignetting, all this, the kind of stuff that I guess most of you would feel kind of comfortable with. Computational photography, how that comes into wide angle, fish eyes, yeah, lots of interesting stuff there. And then the one area that I'm personally really happy about is when we did the German book, when I handed in the first draft of the manuscript, I included I included one chapter on tilt shift photography. And not necessarily just about wide angle, but it has a lot of things in common with wide angle photography. There's a lot of overlap, and that's why I included that. And my editor initially was like, "What? Why would we need that here?" And don't think it's necessary. And then after he had time to go over the manuscript, he came back and said, "This has to stay in here. This is really essential stuff." So I'm really happy that it was kept in there. We actually split it into 2 chapters. So there's 2 chapters on tilt shift photography. One is kind of the basics. What is shift? What is tilt? How does it work? How does it influence perspective and the focus, and how to get one for a decent price. We're taking a look at, like, in the whole context, at the lens baby, at free lensing, at adapters, at software simulations, and then again, as with the other wide angle, we look at tilt shift in practice, in architecture, in landscape, in panorama photography, in product photography, in portrait photography. We look into the miniature effect. And one thing that I'm personally really, really happy about, and that I do all the time, is tilt shift handheld. Most people will tell you tilt shift is something you have to shoot from tripod, but it's just not true. So, that's the book is out, and I couldn't be more happy. And if you're listening to this early, I mean, the show is being released around the 18th, I think, of August 2018. There's a 40% discount for this first week. The link is in the show notes. And if you're listening to the show after the discount is over, there's still a 35% discount over at the publisher with code Marquardt35. And again, I will link that in the show notes. So look at those, and you'll find those. I'm so happy. Okay, what else is going on? Preparing the tours for fall, the Ireland, Morocco, and Lofoten tour. I've just finished booking the flights, additional nights for like pre and post the tours, which I always do. I always do my best to arrive early to have a buffer there and to sort everything out before everyone else arrives. Go make pickups and that kind of stuff. Also, a thing that I've started doing is buying carbon offsets for the flights, which is really interesting because, airline travel creates quite some CO2 emissions, and of course, the environmentally best flight is the one that you don't do. But I do want to travel, and I do want to promote understanding for different cultures, and I do want to give people these life-changing experiences that'll like change them, and then this way hopefully be a bit of a change agent here. I really kind of hope I can be someone who facilitates some more cultural understanding with people, and at the same time I want to be environmentally conscious. And I have found this company named Atmosphere, not a sponsor, not at all. This not affiliated, but they give you a way to offset your carbon footprint for projects that they finance around the world, like they're financing a hydropower plant in Honduras, or efficient ovens in Nigeria and Rwanda, or building a green power plant in India, or like a whole bunch of household biogas reactors for Nepal. Good stuff. I mean, it helps offset some of that CO2. It doesn't avoid it, I know, and that's definitely a point of critique. But it's something that I can do, and that's what I've been doing for all the flights this year, and I'll be doing going forward. So, Atmosphere. yeah, it's something that does at least a little in this area. Anyway, also doing more planning for 2019, including our personal trip, Monica and my personal trip to New Zealand in January. We'll be there for, probably about almost 6 weeks. And then more official photo tours. I mean, you've probably seen the Northern Norway tour on a ship in February, which that's just, back on a ship. Just love doing that. And in addition, there's Romania in fall. You might have seen that. And our Silk Road Kyrgyzstan tour in June. But I'm just in the process of adding 2 more events for 2019. The one is the Bohemian Castles tour. I think it's in May, which will take us to the Czech Republic, including Prague, and, well, amazing landscapes, enormous number of castles and chateaus, urban conservation areas, great sites of the Renaissance, of the Baroque, of Art Nouveau, and just beautiful folk architecture. It's just a really cool place with lots of opportunities. And you can come with us to Greenland again. I remember the last Greenland trip was sold out like almost instantly. And we'll go back to Greenland in September next year. And this time we'll do this whole exploration from land. We'll have like access to speedboats to take us up and down the coast. Greenland is, like, if you like ice, the Greenland is pristine iceberg territory. And if I say icebergs, I mean it. Last time we were there, we saw icebergs the size of villages. Enormously beautiful. And just mind-boggling. It's definitely an experience you'll never forget. And it also does a great job putting the fragility of our climate into perspective. Seeing icebergs and seeing them melt. Definitely an experience, definitely something to change your perspective about things and realize how important it is to keep these things, keep these things in good condition, which is one of the things I hope everyone will get from these photo tours. I mean, not just great photos, which is definitely on the top of the list, but also a change in perspective. And of course, I will put all those online within the next days. DiscoverTheTopFloor.com. All right, to your questions. I have asked you to send in questions for my pre-recordings. This one is the first one. And you came through. Amazing. What an audience. I love you guys. And let's kick it off with the first 2. The first one is from Hampus.
Hello, Chris. A friend of mine has his camera printing the time and date of capture on his images on the pixels. This he does to remember when the photo was taken, but I have been trying to tell him that he can see all of this information inside the EXIF data, and he doesn't need to have it printed on the image, which results in less pixels with the actual image on. But to no avail. Thus, I am wondering if you or any of the listeners know of any program that can read the EXIF data and then print, so to speak, the capture date and time on the image when it is needed, so that the information is always there in the file but only visible on the image when it is needed, and thus all the image information is still there all the time. Thanks in advance, and good luck with all the workshops. Sincerely, Hampus.
Hampus, thank you so much. Good to hear from you again. So your friend wants to kind of bake the time, or he does bake the time and date of the capture into the images. It's interesting because most cameras these days don't really do this anymore. Used to be kind of a cool thing. I remember back in the day, they sold DSLRs and they sold special backs for DSLRs that would enable to copy the date and time and date into the photos. But yeah, it's a waste of pixels, and it's also a distraction because as you're right, the EXIF data has all that. There is an EXIF, a metadata field that is not part of the pixels of the image that says this picture was taken on this and that date at this and that time. And of course, that depends on the camera having set the right time, but that could kind of be the norm. And obviously, you will then need some other way to get to that EXIF data. So what to do? Well, there are modes for different software, like Lightroom, for example. If you go to the slideshow mode, if you make a slideshow, look at the bottom in the toolbar. And if you don't see the toolbar, press the T key that toggles it on and off. There's a little button that says ABC on it. And that allows you to put custom text on your pictures. And that is not just custom text. It could be something from the metadata. If you click on the custom text where it says custom text and change that to the date or even edit it to pretty much anything you like, it can put this straight on the photos. That will be one way to do it. So he could have the photos without the pixels on them, at least new ones that he takes. The old ones have that baked in and there's no good way to remove that. But the new ones could have that. And then you could make a slideshow, a PDF or something out of that for him with the date on it, and he would still have the pictures without the date visually on them if he wants to print them, for example. And there's probably other software that can do that. Definitely something that's probably good to discuss on the Slack. Slack is a great place, the TFTTF Slack is a great place to discuss these kind of things. And let me just check here on the smartphone. Here's on my iPhone, if I open the Photos app, it says on the top of the photo, like if I tap on a photo and open it, it says here 9th of August, 5:50 p.m. So it shows the EXIF data right there, the date from the EXIF data right there. But then maybe what your friend is doing is okay, it doesn't need to be. It's okay, I think, because there are many motivations for looking at photos, for taking photos. You could do this for art purposes, like many of us do. You could do it for documentation, and then maybe that date and time on there, always visible, might be the right thing. Maybe he takes photos for the events and people on the photos. He doesn't really care what it looks like. He just wants the memory. Maybe it's just a bit old-fashioned. Permanently putting the date on the picture is something that might feel natural to him because that's always been that way for him. And baking the date into the actual photo, again, as I said, was once pretty cool. Back in the 80s, film SLRs, you could buy a separate back. You could take the back of the camera off and replace it with a digital back, which was not a digital sensor, but it had a little clock in it that could expose the date straight onto the film. The question is, how does your friend look at his photos? I mean, does he print them out on paper? Then maybe that's a bit of a distraction. Is it on a smartphone? Might be as easy as showing him the built-in Photos app and how it will show you the date if you tap the photo. And I personally couldn't really deal with this, with having the date embedded in the pixels of my photo. That would drive me up the walls. I don't even really like watermarks with my name on them. But then, if your friend is happy with his photos this way, if that's what he wants, then maybe that's exactly what he needs. So honestly, I wouldn't worry about this too much. Hey, thanks again, everyone, for sending in your questions. Keep them coming. I have more pre-recordings to do for the next months. And I appreciate you helping me make the show. It's so easy to do the show with you asking the questions and me kind of having to, not having to worry too much about what I put on the show. Keep them coming. Record your questions on your smartphone. Just use any voice recording app you like and send it to voice@tfttf.com. Again, that's voice@tfttf.com. And I'll be happy to get your question here on the show.
Chris, this is Larry from Baltimore, Maryland. Here is something that I've often wondered about that has picked up some interest and discussion on a Facebook group that I'm a member of. Since it is summer, I'm wearing my polarizing prescription sunglasses, more often while outside using my camera. The camera I've been carrying lately is a Panasonic G9. I can take landscape or portrait-oriented photos and have no problem composing my shot. However, I was asked to take a couple of on-the-trail type of shots of a couple who I met while we were all hiking and using their camera. I went to take a portrait mode shot and the screen turned black. Now, it took me just a moment to realize what was going on, and I lifted my sunglasses and composed the shot and gave them their picture. My question is probably not why some LCD screens go black, but rather how do other manufacturers keep their displays from going black? As a side note, I've noticed on my iPhones have been able to not go black for quite several years now, so I just took that as a nice little feature. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to hearing back from you.
Hey, Larry, awesome question. And it really sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole because I kind of knew about this, but not really. Because, I mean, when the first... Okay. I'm dating myself. I'm old enough to know of a time where LCD screens weren't that common. And the initial LCD screens all had that same problem for a long time, that yes, if you looked at an LCD screen through a polarizer, it would go black if you rotated the polarizer. And polarizing glasses are polarizers. They are the same thing that you put on the front of your camera as a polarizing filter. And the reason that happens is that the LCD screen itself uses polarization to show the picture. So if you take an LCD apart, it pretty much has two foils. Okay, it starts with a backlight, and then there's a polarization foil, and then there is liquid crystals in there, LCD, liquid crystal display, and those liquid crystals can be polarized using electricity. That's how they pretty much show you the picture, by polarizing individual pixels using electricity. And then there's a second foil on the front, and that whole thing together enables the LCD to turn on and off individual pixels, to turn them black or white, to let light through or not. That's how LCDs work. And polarization is essential. It wouldn't work without polarization. So if you have another polarizer in front of you, between you and the LCD, and you rotate your head left and right because you're looking through those polarized glasses, then yes, you end up making it go dark. And that used to be the norm. And that effect is also used, by the way, in variable ND filters. ND filters where you can rotate to make them darker or brighter. It's pretty much simply two polarizers on top of each other that you rotate one off, and then it goes darker and brighter. So polarizers and LCDs, or polarized glasses and LCDs, don't really like each other. Unless the manufacturer of the screen spent a little more money and added one component on top of the screen, a depolarizer. And that's something we had to research a bit. So depolarization makes polarized light into not polarized light. It's a foil. It's a gel that you put on top of the screen that makes the polarized light into unpolarized light. So the angle of your glasses don't really matter anymore. Now, it's not 100% true. Go try it. Take a modern smartphone, and you should probably be able to see that effect. Ideally, that filter would create kind of a randomly polarized light, but it isn't perfect. There's several methods to do that, and the result is not real random. It's pseudo-random. And that's why when you rotate your screen in front of polarizing glasses, it won't go dark, but you'll see some color shifts because there is some polarization still going on. But it's still way better than having your screen go black. And if your screen goes black when you rotate it, that's pretty much how you can tell if the manufacturer wanted to save a few bucks.
You won't talk about face, you won't forget about that.
All right, that was it for this episode. Thank you so much for being subscribed and for, well, just for being here, for sending in your questions, for supporting the show, for, yeah, the whole thing is just, I mean, this is amazing. Have I ever told you how amazing this is to be able to sit here in the Viewfinder Villa in my studio, and, well, which is my office pretty much, and record and talk into a microphone and put my thoughts in about what I do and about photography, and then there are tens of thousands of people listening to this. I mean, this is just mind-boggling, and I really thank you for being such an amazing audience and for being a great community. You guys rock, and I thank you for that.
It's all a question of faith.
Music for the show is by Jeff Smith, silent partner in Headspatter Kagurud Publishing, and Slack Challenges by Reese Pixie, Matt Rapsitor Armstead, Slack Invitations by Chief Invitation Officer, CIO, Rusty Russ. The link to get on the Slack is in the show notes, and my name is Chris Marquardt. You can find me on social media at Chris MarQuardt. Oh, but by the way, I'm doing another trial of Mastodon, which is since Twitter is being a bit of being not a nice citizen at this point, I trying something else. So if you want to check me out there, check out Mastodon. It's a decentralized social network, pretty cool. It's a bit nerdy, but there are now pretty good apps, so you can figure that out. Check it out. Mastodon is what you're looking for, and I would love to hear from you on that network. Oh, of course, go out and take amazing photos, be nice to each other, and happy shooting.